Hi and good evening and welcome back to the Music Technology in Education online conference brought to you by Music Teacher Magazine. I can't believe now we're halfway through, but it does mean we've still got lots of really great sessions coming up over the next 2 evenings. So it's been really great to see some familiar names for days 1 and 2, and I'd like to extend a welcome to those who are joining again for the first time. Whilst we wait for people who are still joining from the waiting room, I'll just reintroduce myself. For those who haven't taken part yet, so my name's Georgia and I'm the conference manager for Music Teacher Magazine. All the sessions will be recorded, and if you'd like to replay any of the content from these sessions, please note that the recordings are available via the conference homepage for the next 3 months. You'll also have access to the handouts for any sessions whilst you watch the recordings, just on the little icon below when you're on the video player. Let me just go back to my slides. There we go. So I'd like to thank our sponsors again. So we had Music First, Music Insight and London College of Music Examinations. We don't have an exhibitor break today, but I will leave the chat open after this talk has finished, so you can network with each other, or if you just want to pop off and get a cup of tea, that's fine as well. So it's been lovely to see you all talking to each other and sharing great tips and advice and resources. So as always, you can get involved on Twitter using the hashtag MusicTech2020, and that's at Music Teacher Magazine. So before I hand over to our amazing panel, I'm just going to quickly run over the housekeeping, although I'm sure you're sick of hearing me talk about it. So the chat panel on the right-hand side, which I can see loads of you are already using, is available for you to talk amongst yourselves. If you've got any questions, please use the Q&A tab, which is at the top of the panel, and upvote any questions you really want to see answering. Please be polite and respectful at all times, as you all have been. And at the end of the session, after the networking break, you'll be redirected onto the landing page for the next session, so don't close your browser. Finally, if you're having any technical problems, just try and refresh the page and don't forget to click the screen to enable audio. So we've got a fantastic lineup of sessions today, starting with our panel. So I'm going to hand you over to Kate Rounding, who's chairing the session, and she's going to introduce the other panelists and explain what these brilliant women are going to be discussing today. So Kate, over to you.
Thank you, Georgia, and hello everyone, and welcome to our session, our panel discussion, Women in Music Technology, Mastering, Production and Innovation. So we're going to be hosting this as a panel discussion, and before I introduce our fantastic panelists, I'll just let you know a little bit about myself. I'm Kate Rounding. I'm Development Director for TIME, Technology in Music Education UK, and TIME is an alliance of music industry and educational organisations. And we are supporting, I'm sure, our shared and collective aim of raising awareness of music technology and its benefits to music education in all its forms. So today, I'd like to welcome our 3 panelists. We have Rita Campbell, who is one of the UK's most in-demand singers, and worked with many great artists, including Jules Holland and Written for Steps and many, many more. And we have Katie Tavini, who is a mastering engineer, known for her attention to detail and quality of production. And we have Amy Dickens, who is, amongst many other things, a researcher and developer of accessible digital musical instruments. So I'm going to start by asking Katie to tell us a little bit more about your work and what you do. What is mastering? What do you do?
Yeah, okay. So I work as a mastering engineer, and basically that's the very final step of the music production process. So it's basically 3 things. Firstly, it's a quality check. So you're checking that the mixers are all functioning well, they all sound good. There's nothing kind of, there's no like little talking that someone's forgotten to mute a mic or something, because when people are sat with mixers for a long time, it's really easy to overlook things. Number 2, it's audio processing. This is actually the smallest part of my job, but it's the most fun part, I guess, and the most talked about part. And so you're looking to add like the extra, like little bit of sparkle to a production. And then number 3 is getting all of the formats ready for distribution, and making sure that the artist has formats to go on all different sort of platforms. So like CD masters, vinyl masters, digital distribution, etc. So it's all those kind of things, and you're basically tying up the project for it then to go to the label to send out into the world.
Thank you, Katie. And Rita, can you tell us a bit about
Hello.
what you're doing?
Well, where Katie's at the end of the journey with mastering, I'm at the front end. So I'm a songwriter. So I work mainly writing top lines, which is the melody and the lyric. I am also a singer, a featured vocalist, which I've sung on many dance hits around the world, and also as a session singer. So I sing backing vocals and ghosting vocals on many artists' albums, and also for singles. And I work on shows like X Factor, Britain's Got Talent, America's Got Talent, America's X Factor, where I would provide all the backing vocals for when they go live. They have the live shows in the TV studio. They don't sound like that. All the people miming in the background aren't really singing, they're miming to me. So that's what we do. It's all TV. And I would record all of that, a lot of the stuff here in my studio, and then send it via the internet. So I'll be doing stuff for people I've never even met, but it goes over to America or goes over to somewhere else in another part of the UK. So I've basically been doing all of that for a very long time. I'm also a vocal coach, and I do a lot of vocal arrangements. So I'm in that area.
Fantastic, thank you. And Amy, what about you?
Yeah, so where Rita is in the actual beginning of the process and Katie's right at the end, I'm in the weird pre-process part where I'm developing and researching instruments that you would make music with digitally. So looking into specifically the accessibility of things, but I started out as an audio engineer, and have moved into this field of computer science where I'm looking into how we create things using new technologies and what works and what doesn't work in especially in performance spaces and recording spaces and all of that kind of stuff. So that's me.
Fantastic. And do you actually build, are you there with the soldering iron and actually building the instruments, or is it more the design?
No, both. I've been with I'm not the best solderer in the world, so only hobby projects and hackathons. But yeah, I've done a bit of both of those things using software, hardware. Just been testing the weird and wonderful for the last 5 years. So
yeah, fantastic. So I wanted to talk a little bit about how we all progressed our careers really in music and music technology. Katie, I think you said that it was more like doing a science degree when you did your degree.
Yeah, it was very sort of experimental, and it was very trial and error and sort of working out what worked and what didn't work. That was like a really big part of it. But uni gave me the freedom to make mistakes, which is really important. Because obviously you can't make a mistake on someone's record. People get angry about that. But yeah, like it was a huge learning curve, and it was more than just the taught stuff. Like the actual practice of doing it was a huge learning curve for me, and like watching all of the other people on the course, because everyone wanted to specialize in something different. Like I'm the only person that's gone on to do mastering. And so learning from them and about the jobs that they wanted to do was really, really cool. And so, yeah, it was all just a bit of trial and error and working out what worked and what didn't work, and, very critical thinking. So it's really good.
Yeah, great. And did you find, any of you really, did you find that there were any particular moments that you thought, actually, this is what I want to do, and any particular opportunities that came along that sort of set you off on that path?
Is that to all of us, or to
Yeah. All of you?
For me, it was when I got my first tour, like proper grown-up tour, you know, up until, because I started out in the industry really young, writing songs, and then just being really bolshy and bold and going, oh, I've written this song, it's brilliant, play it on your radio show. And they did. And I actually got a radio interview at the age of 15, because I quite fancied the radio guy that did the show, and it was all about local talent. And I thought, well, he's a bit of all right, I'll go and speak to him. And I did. And I got a radio interview, and that set me off. But and then I got into my first band. And then I was I was 15, 16 and doing like 3-4 gigs a week. I think starting young really helped for me, for what I do. And then before I knew it, I was sort of being asked to do sessions for people. And because I can mimic, you know, I was getting asked to do, oh, can you do this in the style of? And I thought, well, okay, so that I was using all of those to create a show reel. So I did a lot of stuff for free, because it's not all about the money. Because, you know, when you start out, you need experience, and, you know, you can't be sort of pigeonholing yourself and, oh, I want to be a session singer. You don't become a session singer. You don't train to be a session singer. It happens, it evolves, because, you know, you become really good and quick at something, and you need to have practice in a studio. You need to do lots of sessions to be able to hone your craft and become good. And if that means doing favors for people, like I did a lot of favors, and then they would do me a favor back. I'd say, yeah, I'll come and sing that TV thing for you, or I'll sing that. And then I'd use that as a little snippet on my show reel. And then I'd say, right, I did that for you. I need to record something. Can you record me in your studio for free? So favors for favors are really important as well. I did all of that. And then, you know, you end up so I used all those show reels and made up a show reel, went to my first session agency at the age of 19 and said, Bosh, I can do all of this, because I'd done a load of it by then. And I said, there, I can do this. And they said, great, we'll sign you up. Then I started getting all this, I was getting bookings, like proper grown-up session work, you know, like someone's album. Someone wants you to go and do backing vocals on the tour for Take That. And I was like, so I'd be going off and doing all this really exciting stuff, like grown-up stuff. And that was when I knew I was playing Wembley, being flown around in a helicopter from London up. Yeah, I'm in a helicopter being flown up to Birmingham NEC, because we'd just done a TV show in London and we couldn't do it in driving. So they flew us up. I'm sat in the back of this thing going, yeah, I've made it now. This is like proper session work. I love this. And then you think, oh, I love this. And it keeps going. And it's all these experiences that you learn from. It takes time, but you have to keep sticking with it and meeting people and working with people. The more people you work with, the better you become, the more people you know. And then they like working with you. They'll ring you up. And if you're easy to work with and nice, they will always ring you back, especially if you're good and you've done it a lot, so you've become good. Do you not agree? Do you not agree, ladies? It's in this industry, you've got to be, you know.
Absolutely. It's snowballs as well. Like the more work you do, the more you get. It's kind of, yeah. And
you have to work hard. And you know, it's you don't just make it. You don't just suddenly get you're a great mastering engineer. You have to go and do it for a very long time, and your ears and people then go, she's good, and it's word of mouth. And a lot of this is word of mouth. Oh, she's great. She's brilliant. You've got to use her. She did this. And it's like, oh, she did that. She must be good. So, you know, and that happens. It's in this industry. For a woman in this industry as well, you know, you sometimes do feel like you have to work a little bit harder sometimes, especially in a man's arena, probably for the mastering. You know, there's more men doing that than there are women. So it's almost like you do feel like you've got a little bit more to prove. And then once you've shown your worth, it's like, woo.
I think it's interesting that you mentioned that about in a man's world, because I know we've all spoke about this and that, you know, different experiences for each of us. But what always amazes me, because, you know, I've been working in music for 25 years or so and worked as a studio engineer 20 years, 15 years ago. And there were very few women working in that sector at that time, working in studios. But it amazes me to hear that that's still the case now, 15 years on. Amy, do you have the, is it 2% Rising?
That's with Katie, I think, the 2%.
Sorry, Katie.
Very much, yeah, the 2% figures of the industry is quite upsetting to read. And still, I think the last report was that, 2% at production level. I think it's about 5% at audio engineering level. I know I did my degree in audio engineering, started it about 10 years ago, finished it about, I think, 6 to 8 years ago now. And when I finished that degree, I think I was one of four women that started on the course and like one of two that graduated. So, you know, it's all the way through the process. There's a fight to stay in it and to be recognized as much as your peers as well. I know that there's been definitely moments where I've had experiences where I'm compared to my peers or overlooked completely just because of being a woman. And that, you know, at the time I was more naive to that, and I didn't realize that it was a gendered thing. I just thought I had to work that bit harder, or I needed to be one of the lads kind of thing. I just kind of thought I had to fit in better. And then I realized that actually, no, this is a problem across the whole industry. And that is, it can be frustrating at times. Yeah. But Katie has the 2% Rising thing. I think that's really, really interesting to try and group people together.
Yeah. Can you tell us a bit about that, Katie?
Yeah, so a friend of mine and I were sort of chatting over Christmas, and we were just like, you know, there's loads of groups for women in music, but they tend to be predominantly sort of DJ aimed or radio, that side of it, rather than production and engineering. And we were like, we want to make a network, but we don't know. We don't know where there is a network already, so we made this group called 2% Rising. And we've got about 250 women who are producing and engineering in it, which is amazing. And so we're working really, really hard to do like skill shares and networking and trying to share as many opportunities as possible to sort of help everyone get up the ladder a little bit quicker, just to try and change that balance, because it is depressing when you go to a networking event and someone goes, "Oh, are you an artist?" And it's like, no. Why assume that? Like, ask me what I do first. Like, there's nothing wrong with being an artist, but you don't want to hear me sing.
But there is always auto-tune.
Yeah. I'll coach you, Katie. I'll coach you. I'll get a vocal out of you.
I might have a career change now if you coach me, Rita.
There's been so many people I know that have done it like that. So that's why Melodyne's my favourite plugin, but we'll get into that later.
Indeed, lovely, thank you. Yeah, so I mean, I know we have all spoke about this and whether, you know, working in music technology or in sort of predominantly male environments, as they have been and apparently still are, whether that has been a barrier. I mean, it's evident that it isn't, because everybody here has developed good, solid careers. But I mean, I know for myself that there was a difference between kind of banter and actual, what's the word? Prejudice or discrimination, and that there is a difference between that. And I know you've talked about that, Rita.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, there's a fine line, but, you know, I do think it's all gone a bit crazy now. So many people are so sensitive to banter. What is actually, in essence, just banter. And I think so many people are scared. You know, guys, you know, I go into a studio and there are a lot of men now that are just scared to say anything, you know, and it's like, I really wish they wouldn't, because I don't have a problem. I give as good as I get. I could be accused of all sorts of things because I just say things in a studio, and but nowadays even I'm like, oh, maybe they take that the wrong way. You can't say, you know, I mean, it's just stupid things. Like it's like that Coca-Cola moment, you know, in the old days they'd have this really good-looking guy, and he'd take his top off to have a can of Coke, you know. But those sort of things in a studio would be mentioned, and regarding air conditioning, and it would just be like, nowadays no one can say anything like that, but it's just funny. And I do think that I think banter is misconstrued now, a lot of it. But you know, I've not come across any problems in studios, to be honest. And where there have been a few like comments, it tends to be like the old school, old guys that would sort of come up with stuff like, oh, you know, better turn the air conditioning on because Rita's a bit cold in their vocal booth. Do you see what I mean? You'd always get those, and that was really old. And he'd just sort of like laugh and just go, yeah, well, so would you be if you were cold. You know, you just say stuff like that. But yeah, the banter thing has changed. Definitely.
So, I know one of my favourite studio stories was I was engineering and a male colleague came in and literally pushed my hand off the desk, physically moved it, which all I could do was laugh, really.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So, but obviously supporting, you know, younger women, young professionals coming into the industry, I think it is important that they have female role models in these environments, and that they are aware of them and where to find them. So groups like 2% Rising are very important. And also, I suppose, the education that they have on that career journey development is very important. Just before we sort of move on, because I know we're going to open up to some questions from the audience, I wanted to ask each of you if there was at the moment a favourite piece of equipment, a favourite plugin, a favourite technique you're using, or something that we should be aware of and should be using at the moment. Amy?
Well, I guess I'll go with the more weird and wonderful side of life, which is I'm really enjoying the way that technology is allowing to use touch and gesture at the moment. So there's some things called the touch boards by Bear Conductive, where you can wire them up to pretty much anything you can imagine and make that into a musical instrument. There's also other ones called the Makey Makey, and at the very entry level, you can use the BBC microbit for this as well. So there's kids out there that are getting to use the BBC microbit to make 8-bit music by coding it themselves, and they can use gestures and touch and all sorts of things with that too. So yeah, touch and gesture controlled things are really exciting for me right now, because it's this new way in which we can turn anything into a music instrument, and I think that's kind of fun.
Yeah, brilliant, very exciting. And Katie?
Well, for my job, it's not creative in the same way. So I'm going to mention two things. One is something that I've seen really recently, which is a voice to MIDI mic called Bocklier, and that's amazing. That's so cool. My friend Lena did a video of it where she was basically playing the flute but with her voice down this mic, and it was just so cool. But obviously I don't use that in my work, so I'm going to go with speakers. They're so important to me. Like, I need to be able to hear everything, and I need to be able to get right into the music. So yeah, good monitoring. I'm always like keeping an eye out on what new products are coming out, and demoing new stuff. It's really important to me.
Cool. Do you still do that thing of sort of taking the track outside and listening to it on the car speakers as well?
Well, I don't have a car, so no.
No, then.
I don't have a car, but yeah, Brighton's a bit cramped, so.
We used to do that after mixes on a cassette, and it would go. You remember that? Obviously, you'd get the cassette and you'd go, right, got to go and listen to it in the car. And that was the case. Oh, it sounds good. Or no, it's too bassy. Or it's this. My favourite little bit of kit. obviously I've said it before, is Melodyne. I'm amazed at Melodyne. You have to know what you're doing with Melodyne to use it properly. But I'm in awe of that. I will study and learn how to use it properly because it's a brilliant bit of kit, especially if you're working with unpolished singers and artists. There's only so much you can get out of them when you're coaching. But if you want to get that sort of processed, because everything's so processed now, all records use it. It doesn't matter how good the singer is; they tend to use Melodyne on everything. Mm-hmm. You can be the best singer in the world, so it's not really about the tuning. It's just like a processed sparkle that it gives. And I think we're so used to hearing it now. When it's not on a record, Amy's nodding. When it's not on a record, it's like, oh, it sounds weird. It's like, well, no, that's how it should sound, but it all sounds so sparkly now. But that I love. It's my favourite bit of kit. And I've just started I've always been a Pro Tools girl since I started with having my own studio many, many years ago. And now my husband uses Logic Pro X. So I've now started using that because he said, it's really easy, try it out. And it is. And I was like, I was really surprised. So I'm hoping to be able to use both of them, to be able to switch, which would be nice. But yeah, Melodyne and Logic Pro is my I like.
And a good set of speakers, definitely. Or maybe two.
As a singer, great mics. I've got a really brilliant mic. It's so important to have mic and great headphones. When you're singing, you need to hear everything. And if you're working with singers, guys, don't give them DT 100s, which are for drummers. I know you can stand on them and you can throw them out the car window and they'll get run over and they'll still work. They're not good if you're trying to hear all the intonation in your voice. You need something that's nice and bright and toppy and enclosed. So don't give us DT 100s, guys, please.
Ever.
They're great. Don't get me wrong. My husband uses them. They're brilliant, but not for singers.
Actually, being as we have got a little bit of time, Katie, what do you think about the sort of argument with mastering about volume and compression and everything being loud and therefore lack of dynamics? What's your thoughts on that?
It's such a tricky one because when everything was being released on CD, you could, because of the format, have a very, very loud master, and that's fine. But now things are being released on streaming platforms. This goes really, really deep, by the way, so I'm going to whiz through it. But basically, when you fold down a lossless file into a lossy file, you can get what's called intersample peaking, and that's basically distortion that happens and it sounds bad. So for streaming, it's really, really good to have a more dynamic master as well, because dynamics are really nice and they sound good. We like them. And when you listen to something that's very, very limited, your ears get very tired. I always feel a little bit as if I'm sort of underwater or something when I listen to a very, very limited master. But having said that, if you heard a punk track that was as dynamic as a classical record, you'd be like, what? This doesn't make any sense. So there's always a stylistic, vibe that you have to play into. Similarly, like if you slammed a classical track through a limiter, it just sounds weird. It's not what you expect. So within a genre, you sort of have to be, a little bit mindful. So dynamics are good in a nutshell. Distortion is bad.
I'm relieved to hear that myself. Yeah. Definitely, because I know that there was a phase where people would come in to, actually send a track for mastering and it was already just at maximum. And it's like, well, you can't really do much with that. And just this loud all the time. So dynamics are back, which is great. Hi, Georgia.
Hi. So there's been so many great questions, as you, I'm sure you're not surprised at all. And we've got about 10 minutes now where we can go through those. So let me just quickly whiz to the top of the Q&As. one of your questions was talking about the tools you use, each of you, and I was wondering if maybe I can collect those from you, sort of just a brief list, so I can put that together and share that as a handout, because one of the delegates has asked if you guys can share the kinds of tools you use. And then as an actual question on top of that, someone's asked, where do you get the ideas for new kit and tools without getting overwhelmed with all of the advertising literature and obviously all the options? And that's to everybody.
I go on word of mouth basically. If I'm at a studio, someone else's studio, I go, oh, I really like this. What is it? Then they'll tell me. It's word of mouth. And then, if I'm needing something and I don't quite know what I want, because obviously I'm not a tech head, but I will then ring up someone who does know and ask their advice, who knows what setup I've got up here. And he's great. He comes straight over and sort of says, well, you'll need this and this. This is great. It's a new bit of kit. So I tend to go through word of mouth and advice from people that really do know.
Yeah, same. Always talking to other engineers about what they're using, and don't really have time to try out loads of new stuff or read through marketing literature, which is boring, really. So yeah, always word of mouth.
If you're lucky, I was really lucky with the guy. When I was first trying, I didn't know which mic to get, because each mic's different for different voices, and I ended up with a U87 and I wanted the 47, but I ended up getting a 47 copy. So I've got all those lovely mics. But before that, I was really fortunate because he managed to arrange for me to try the different stuff. You can go and try things as well if you want to know what's right. Certain shops will allow you to go in and use their studio inside to try. I mean, I went through loads of mics. I ended up going with what I went with because it was industry standard, plus it was best for my voice. And I think it's the same with headphones. You can get people to even deliver you stuff if you get a good relationship going with people. I think is really important as well. Don't be afraid to ask. We're always learning. There's nothing wrong with that. People will always want to help you. That's true. I found for me.
Great. Yeah, so for the sorry, Amy, you go.
It's all right. I found that too with even the more weird and wonderful music tech stuff. I've asked companies like, can I try this out? Can I put it into my testing sessions? And most people are quite forthcoming with saying, yeah, go for it. I also attend like different events. So NAMM, which is I think it's the National Association of Music Manufacturers in America. I go to that event and I've spoken there, and there's halls full of all sorts of equipment that you wouldn't believe. It's a cacophony of sound as you move through the event, but it's huge. It's like 4 or 5 miles of convention. And then also to things like Ableton Loop, which just you get to see like what's happening at the forefront of all the digital tech stuff at these kind of events. So that's a really nice place to go and experience everything. But yeah, it's definitely go on what people say. Oh, have you tried this? It's really good. Because if somebody's saying that to you, then you know that like, yeah, all the flashy lights and marketing material won't work with me. It would be like, oh, if somebody says it's good, I'll use it.
So it seems to be word of mouth, and then asking people if you can test things out. Good advice there. For the next question, I'm going to combine two. So one from Kyriaki, one from Alicia. Both are teachers. They've said they're teachers and they want to know for their female students whether you have any female role models in the music tech industry that you can recommend, other than yourselves, obviously. And also, do you have any specific advice to motivate female students to follow this path as a career?
Well, who's going to go first?
I think we've all probably got some. In terms of role models, I haven't got like a list of role models. Katie, you might have more knowledge of women working in music production, music technology.
Yeah, so on the sort of recording and production side, there's Sylvia Massey, and she has a book called Recording Unhinged, which is really, really fun. And it's actually amazing for like all ages. Like you could literally give a child that book and they'd find something to love about it. And you could give someone who's been producing for 20 years that book and they'd still love it. She's got a microphone museum. She's doing all kinds of crazy stuff, and she's just, yeah, a really, really cool role model. But I think like getting on Twitter and stuff and just finding people is a really, really good way to connect. There's almost too many to name.
Brilliant. Well, maybe that's something we need to do and share with people so that they've got that resource, because, that's a good point. And in terms of encouraging them, I would say, as a young woman who wants to work in the music industry, wants to work in music technology, whether that's as a studio engineer or live sound or whatever it is, I just do it. Just find what the pathway is for you, whether that's through college, through university, and know that you're as capable as anybody else. Absolutely.
Yeah. I agree. Sorry, you can also point to the history as well, because for a lot of people, they don't understand that a lot of the industry was built by women. There are people who helped found the radiophonic workshop for the BBC, like Daphne Oram. There are people who created the first sonic computer program. There are people they are all women. And it wasn't until later on that it became an industry that those were overshadowed by men. So just look at the history and don't ever feel like you don't belong in an industry that was created by people who look and think like you.
Yeah, totally. I think managing expectations as well. Like there's quite a lot of pressure from parents to, you finish uni and you get a job. That's not really the case in the music industry. You don't really get a job. It's, you get a gig and then you get another gig and then you get another gig. So, I'd say 90% of my colleagues are freelancers like me, but that was like no one talked about that at uni. And I've been doing this for like 11 years now, and my parents still ask when I'm going to get a job. So it's a really big thing, but I think not just for women, but for anyone, just being like, this is the reality of it. It's not scary at all. There's loads of people doing it, but sort of, making sure that that's known about.
Good point.
I didn't go to university to study music. I just left school. I quit really early and got in a band, and I went out and I just did all those really, really tough gigs. The sort of gigs that if you can gig there, you can do anywhere. And that's how I really honed my skill. And, I could sing, but, you have to do those sort of gigs in order to learn how your stagecraft. You to perform, you have to do all that, and how to deal with an audience that aren't watching you. How do you get them? What do? You don't just learn that. You have to do it. You have to be involved in order to showcase your skills. You might not be able to get any paid work, so you might have to do some favours, and then they will do you a favour back. Then you can use their studio. We don't all have studios to start with, but it's using other people's input, and you give them input, and before you know it, you get a little connection. There's a way of developing a little family, and it's that sort of family that you need when you're starting out in this industry for support, whether you're a man or a woman. But if you're a woman and you can, of course, you can get into this industry. And if you're good and you just keep doing your work and you work hard, and it doesn't matter who you are, you have to work hard. The harder you work, the more you do something, the better you become. And that goes with everything, not just music. But the more you perform, the easier it becomes, the better it becomes, the better you become. I did actually make a note about this. Don't be afraid of direction. Don't be afraid of taking some direction and advice and help. That doesn't mean you're weak. You can. I've learned. I'm still learning. I've been in this business. I'm 52, and I've been doing this since I was 15, and I'm still learning, and I'm still improving in certain elements. It's like, oh my God, I started doing this thing. It's great. I'm going to do this all the time. But so You don't know everything. None of us do. We keep learning, we keep going. And that doesn't matter whether you're a man or a woman. You just focus and keep going. We should all be supporting each other with that, actually, especially at the moment in light of everything that's happening.
Absolutely. Jess has asked, and sorry if you said this earlier, but where can she find out more about the 2% Rising group?
So that group's on Facebook. You just search 2% Rising. So it's the number 2 and the % sign, and then Rising, and you'll find it.
Great. I think we've got time for just one more question, which is directed, I think, to Amy from Thelma. She said, how do you go about testing the designs, and is it an inclusive process? Also, what are the parameters for testing of the accessibility, especially with musicians with intellectual disabilities or impairments?
Yeah, so it is an inclusive process, and I've been doing this research now with the University of Nottingham's Mixed Reality Laboratory, it's a mouthful, for the last 5 years. And one of the things that we did was partner with something called the Able Orchestra. So I did some in-person sessions working with a group of young people with a range of complex disabilities, both intellectual or physical impairments, and a number of things. And we go in, we take a bunch of digital instruments with us, we test what works for people, set them up, and then spend a week learning a piece or creating a piece of music. And the young people involved create everything from choosing the soundscape to writing the piece itself, and then we're just there facilitating that. And we actually, in 2016, went to the BBC Proms, and they performed on stage there as well, and it was a phenomenal experience. But yeah, there's a lot of things that I've been looking at through the process, because as everybody here just said, I'm always learning. We're always learning, and the more I learn, the less I know is definitely the motto of an academic, and that is something that I found all throughout this process. And I have been trying to set those parameters, because there isn't many people out there looking at accessibility in the music industry, in music tech. A lot of music tech is all about the marketing material, as we've talked about, and how flashy it looks, or what artists you can get using your kit to make it, popular. And a lot of the things that could be made more accessible are overlooked. And so I'm finding those and trying to write and work with companies. And I've worked with quite a few of the big industry leaders as well on this, and had talks with, Native Instruments are doing great work here. I've talked to the people at Ableton and what they're planning to do for accessibility. It's definitely a hot topic, and there's lots of people going more towards it. So hopefully we'll see more inclusion as the years go on, both for more women in tech and more accessible tech as well.
Great.
I'm going to check you out, Amy. I'm going to go and check out some of these. I send us some so I can try them out.
Yeah.
See, that's how you do it, guys. I can't wait to check out some of your things. It's brilliant. I love it.
We've got a session from Drake Music next, specifically on accessibility and inclusion, music tech for learners with additional needs. So hopefully they'll be able to signpost some good resources. And like I said, for some of the stuff you guys have talked about today, I'll try and create a handout to share with the attendees so they can find out more. But it's been a really inspiring panel. I'm sure the delegates will agree. And I just want to thank you again for answering all their questions as well. As I've said many times, you'll be able to watch this session back. The recording will be available via the homepage. But yeah, thanks again, everybody, for a brilliant session.
Thank you.
So, as I mentioned, we don't have an exhibitor slot for today. And so what we're going to do is I'm just going to leave the chat panel open here. I'm going to leave this session open, so you're all welcome to talk to each other, continue the conversation, and then come back at about 5 to. I'm going to then start the redirect into the next session. So if you just leave your screens open, we will see you again for the next session from Cassie and B from Drake Music. Hi everyone. So we'll be starting the next session shortly. We've got Music Tech for Learners with Additional Needs, and that's going to be with Bea Hubble and Cassie Gerling of Drake Music. Then after that, we've got Music Tech for Early Years and Primary with Chris from MTech. So 2 really great sessions. I'm just going to pop the instructions on the screen of how to get into the next session. So as always, don't close your browser. Because after a short pause, you'll be redirected onto the landing page for the next session. So once you've been redirected, you can click the Enter Now button to enter the waiting room. And if you aren't redirected, that's also not a problem. Just head back to the landing page of the conference and then click Enter Now there. The landing page is just on the screen now. I can see that someone's asked about the handouts from all the sessions. So I'm just going to quickly, before we redirect, I'm going to show you the screen again where I've highlighted where the handouts are. So basically, when you go to watch the session on demand, so the recording of the session, which are all available via the landing page, just click on the tile for one of the speakers, and at the top you'll see the recording. You'll need to pop in your email address again. But once you've clicked on the recording, you'll see in the bottom right there's a little notes icon. That's where you can download all the handouts. So even if you go to the recording just to get the handouts, that's where they are all located. So I'm going to start the redirect now. So see you in the next session.